And with me now is one of the Conservative candidates for Warminster East, Denis Brett. Good morning, Denis.
Good morning, Andrew.
Now, why should Warminster East choose you on the 4th of May?
Well, Andrew, I think I'll answer that question directly in a moment, but as a way into this programme, I want to offer a thank you for inviting me. I want to say how valuable this kind of facility is, WCR, to the community, because one of my concerns as a candidate and want to address over the next 4 years the people who are lonely in our community. And WCR, as I see it and reflect upon it, provides a magnificent service and brings, if you like, the world and its many aspects into the very heart of people's homes. And when you're lonely, you are very much disconnected from everything that is happening. But WCR brings that world right into your room, and you reconnect and be a part of the community and hope to tap in it one way. So I'm delighted to say that I heard that you were granted a £50,000 for your future, and I think that is delighted to hear that. And that where it's granted on, 10,000 a year, we need to be clear about this, and people of Warminster need to be clear about that it is 10,000 per year, and it's clearly not a gift, it's clearly not a grant, it's granted so that you can continue to develop this very valuable asset to the people of Warminster. How disastrous, Andrew, it would be if granted money was taken away from facilities like this. So I just wanted to make that point, really, because it is important that we understand that and that there isn't misunderstandings. But what would I bring? Well, I as I've indicated to you, very concerned about people who live alone. When you look at demographics of our community, we have a very high proportion of elderly people. How do we reach out to them? That's the difficult task, isn't it? One I would want to work on. So what do I bring to empower this kind of thing, or reconnect them belonging to the community as a whole and isolated? I think it's very important, valuable, to be alongside people who are lonely. Yeah? I don't think we've got to provide the world for them. We've got to get that into perspective. But I think it's important just being with them and sitting alongside them. There are many wonderful charities and facilities in Warminster, and we could be, as a community, very proud of that. But we've still got work to do. We still need to put more into of ourselves as a wonderful community that we are, but offering a bit more care, a bit more compassion, a bit more understanding of what it is like to be alone. So I want to work on that, help them reconnect and help them to understand that they too can bring through their life's journey, their life story, valuable things to us, the younger generation. Very good, for example, to see the schools coming into Ashwood, and those wonderful photographs in the local journal this week. So that's one, and it's about listening to them. And I think one of the roles, as I would see it, if I was elected as a candidate, is to listen. We often say, I am listening to you, but do we truly listen? And do we carry out the message or their concerns that they want to tell you about and try and work on them? And that's one of my skills, I think, and that's what I bring to the town council table. Listen to your people. It is the people who are important.
So do you think the people in Warminster East at the moment, what would you say you feel their concerns are at present?
Well, one is isolation, as I expressed that, and we need to look more about their mobility. How can we empower them, enable them in mobility? Well, there are wonderful facilities around Warminster that brings the, I don't know their proper names, the chariots and fire.
Yes,
You know,
mobility scooters.
Thank you, Andrew, putting me on the right path there. Yeah, there is that, but it's about the most loneliest times is weekends. What can we do? And for people who live alone, Sunday, which should be a glorious day, can be a desperately lonely day. And I want to look at what do we provide for them, or rather, what should we not take away from them? You know, I've heard stories about, for example, well, let us have no costs for car park in Warminster, for example. And that might sound quite wonderful. There have been many discussions, I think, over the period of time, both perhaps on your programme and through the newspaper. But you have to take the veneer of that and say, what does that actually mean for me? And what does that actually mean to the person who has who's disadvantaged in the mobility sort of area? And I think, as I interpret taking that money that comes in for car parking is used, and you've only got to go to town council, account records, part of it is used to make provision for the buses to take people from Eastwood, and I observed this. You know, as I go around Eastwood, I mean, there are many people at the bus stops around Eastwood. But if you took the funding away from what comes in car parking, you potentially lose the buses. And I think we need to be aware of those kind of things, because I would fight for the buses to remain in Warminster for not just for those who have major mobility concerns, but for people who find generally getting round rather difficult. So that's key in my book too, to make sure all those facilities that allow them to get out and about are still provided for.
Okay. One area I want to talk about with you, because I know you for many years have been a school governor, is school provision in Warminster as the town grows. Where do you feel the town needs to go with regards to its education?
Well, that's a very good question, and thank you for asking it, particularly as I'm chair of Kingdom Governors now for my many sins, or not. And how delighted I have been with parents of the community Eastwood to continuously re-elect me, and I've been the governor now, Andrew, when you were at school,
Yes.
and that's a few moons away, isn't it?
A few years now, yeah.
I've been the governor for 25 years. Whilst education is, strictly speaking, Andrew, a Wiltshire Council thing, we must say that in the first place. But to answer your question, with a growing populations, it is a deep concern. And there are conversations, real conversations, taking a place with Wiltshire Council and with, which is not my arena as chair of governors, is the trustees of the Acorn Academy to address those issues. Namely, cost is one of them. And I'm very keen that every child is cared for and given a first-class education, and that requires funding. And we know in the present discussions nationally on education, there's that conversation about reducing per head funding for children. Now we've really got to look at that and understand why that is happening. But as long as I'm chair of the Kingdown School, and more primary schools are coming on board, which enables us to help them develop themselves, because as a large school of 1,600 pupils, we have that kind of funding, which helps the primary schools. After all, they are the feeder schools into Kingdown. I think with hard work, a good strategy, good thinking out of strategy and policies, it will work. And it may potentially have to look at the hard question, do we need another school? But that's not my arena, possibly, because I believe we need to be together as one school rather than one west, one east, in the context of a large comprehensive school. But I'm sure we'll address that when we're confronted with it. It is a wee bit down the road, so ask me again if I'm elected 4 years later, Andrew, and see where we are, all right?
Okay. We are running out of time, but just to the question I've been asking everybody is, if you're elected on May the 5th, I think, is counting day, so
Yeah.
if you're elected then, what is, I think I might know your answer, but what is one thing you'd like to achieve in your time as a councillor?
The good care of the people of Warminster, meet their healthcare needs, although I firmly believe, Andrew, that we today in 21st century provision of healthcare, we need to take some responsibility for our own healthcare and our general well-being. That's a hard fact. In delivering healthcare, we need to take some of that responsibility. But that's the heart of it. And secondly, I know you only asked one, but you get to two. That's a bonus. It is, I really understand what it's like to be alone. And we are a wonderful community. This community, I learned a long time ago, is not necessarily a mobile community, apart from the army, but they're becoming more stable, as it were, in their term of service in these areas, from a 2-year thing, possibly up to a 5-10 year. But what we are, and what is the jewel of on the crown in Warminster, we are 3-generational. We are 3-generational. Therefore, we are well rooted together as a community in Warminster. Good neighbourliness. We need to develop it, and we need to, I'd like to see 4 years later, that we care for one another a little bit more. And that can be across the age bracket, because we must remember care is not just in the region of elderly. As we know, care needs and funding needs to be put in for the younger generation, because what is becoming serious are the mental health issues. And we need to address those early and make sure that we speak up in the health authority arena for proper funding for young people who can be isolated again and very lonely when they have mental problems. So it works both ends of the spectrum. There you are, rather a big teaspoon, but they're the two things I'd like to see. Address loneliness, and let's hope that we have more care and more compassion for the people of the wonderful community of Warminster, which we are, of which I love.
Lovely. Thank you very much for coming in and talking to us.
Thank you.
And good luck on the 4th of May.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
indeed.